Now, the last couple of months, we haven't gotten too much from Nintendo. Sure, some small things here and there, but nothing major. One thing is certain, 2020 wasn't like 2017 when it comes to new releases and cool Nintendo games. However, I'm hoping 2021 will be our year. But today we won't talk about that, because instead we will cover a game that was recently released. Super Mario 3D World. Well, re-released. And it's a gem when it comes to co-op Mario gameplay. However, which things in the game are the best according to me? Well, today we will find out. Number 5. Now, what's even better than one Mario? Well, two Marios, of course, and luckily enough, there's a new power-up in this game that does exactly that. The Double Cherry, which first appeared in Super Mario 3D World and returns in its Nintendo Switch port. But sadly enough, not in Bowser's Fury, which I don't understand at all. Now, when you grab this item, a clone of yourself appears, and this one keeps the original character's state. For example, a Fire Flower power-up. Now, they all move identically to the original, which is especially fun because that way you can form a small army. And that's not all these clones can do. They can also be used to activate certain switches and platforms, so it also plays a role in puzzles, obtaining extras, and even platforming. But if one of your boys or girls gets hit, they will actually disintegrate, and they are gone for good. Unless you find a brand new Double Cherry, of course. Now, personally, I freaking love this power-up. It really allows you to play around with interesting mechanics, and also makes you a whole lot stronger. And the hardest part of all of this is keeping them alive, which offers a very interesting challenge in certain levels. Especially Double Cherry Pass is really good. This is where the Double Cherry really shines. Here you get to fight a bunch of block steppers with your new brother and a Fire Flower, solve some smaller puzzles where keeping clones alive is crucial, and more. So in my opinion, this power-up really gives you some cool options. And other players can even steal them from you. Which is a small addition, but it is a fun thing. But it can also be a bit annoying at times. It really depends on who you're playing with. But in general, I like it. Number 4. Now, there are a couple of things that make this Super Mario title special. Certain things that no other does. For the first time in a 3D Super Mario title, the game supports up to 4 players simultaneously. Sure, we've seen this before in new Super Mario Bros. Games, but now it's also in a 3D title. And personally, I think this works really well. But that's not all. Nintendo ended up adding something to all of this that makes it so much better. While the co-op multiplayer in this game is still really similar to what we saw in previous games, there is something new to it all. Super Mario 3D World uses a cooperative and competitive multiplayer system. And that's what makes it very interesting. Each player works together to get to the end of the stage, of course, but everybody is also ranked based on points they earned out of the total score at the very end. And the player that scores the most points for one stage receives a crown, fitting for a winner, because you won that round. And the fun thing about this crown is that it can also be stolen by another player, and gives the player wearing it at the very end of the stage a score bonus. So in a lot of instances, you'll be fighting with all your friends over this darn crown, because it gives you quite a lot of bonus points. So in the game, you end up fighting with your friends or whoever you're playing with a lot, in order to end up as king with the highest points of all. And that adds something competitive to the game. Even if everything is quite easy for you to do, keeping yourself busy with getting points is still a lot of fun. So while it's a small thing, I do like the point system in this game a lot. It really enhances the co-op experience. And luckily enough, Nintendo continued with this kind of stuff in games like Super Mario Maker 2, where it turns into some sort of race. But there are more things in this game that are 100% worth remembering. Number 3. Now, Nintendo loves to come up with all kinds of power-ups, and I gotta say, I totally understand why. It can really help in spicing up the gameplay. Just imagine Bowser's Fury without any power-ups. A game like that would be really lame, and so many things would get a lot harder. And so we see these special items in almost any Super Mario title. Well, except for Odyssey, but that game was different and also sort of gave you power-ups in the form of enemies. But in Super Mario 3D World, we saw a very unique one return, the Mega Mushroom. And this was was its first appearance in a 3D Super Mario title. Now, it works as it did in New Super Mario Bros. 2. However, if someone ground pounds, they now create a small shockwave that hits all nearby blocks and enemies. And of course, you can destroy warp pipes and anything else you stumble upon in a level. And after using it for a while, you will lose it. But in this game, they at least properly warn you about it. Now, in general, I like this version of the Mega Mushroom because it gives you more freedom than the older ones. In this 3D world, you have more movement options in general. In 2D titles, it's going from left to right, and that's about it. But here you can stomp around the whole level, which still limits you to an extent, but it's a lot better than what we saw in the new Super Mario Bros. Games. And it's especially fun if you're playing with a group of friends, because then all of you can turn into giants. Rampaging across a level as a group, destroying anything or anyone in your way, is a lot of fun. And it certainly changes the pacing of the game in a good way. In general, I like this power-up a lot because it's a bit of a power trip. It really makes you feel strong and unbeatable, just like a superstar does, allowing you to really go nuts for a bit. And that's what's so great about it. In this 3D game, you get even more freedom. And in the end, Bowser's Fury took it even further with the Giga Bell. So, it's pretty epic. Number 2. Now, every Super Mario game has bosses of some kind. Even in the very first game, that was a thing, although the bosses were a bit basic back then. However, in time, these fights got better and better, because the hardware was able to do more, and Nintendo got better at it all as well. And when it comes to Super Mario 3D World, they ended up creating some amazing boss battles. In my opinion, some of the best we have ever seen. One good example is the Histocrat, which serves as the second boss of World 3. Now, this one only has 2 attacks. One is to emerge from the ground to send boulders landing on the player, and the second is to send out snakes with plates for the player to jump on, which sometimes have super bells on them. And when the plates are cracked, the snakes will bite and damage the players if they are standing on it for too long. Now, this doesn't sound too special, but luckily enough, this isn't all, because you can use those plate snakes to get to the boss and deal damage. And I gotta say, it's a great fight, incorporating both combat and platforming. It all works really well together. It's almost seamless and a lot of fun, which I love about it. And this is just one of the bosses. There are many more in the game that are just as great. Another one that I really like is Motley Boss Blob, the second boss of World 6. His tactic is gathering a bunch of gelatinous blobs to transform himself into a large clown-like monster, and he will then try to jump right on top of you. And on the last jump, he falls apart again into smaller blobs and turns back into his smaller self. At that point, you can jump on him to deal damage. However, this can be hard to pull off because there are a million blobs everywhere now, which you can destroy, but still, it can be really hard to deal with all this chaos. But that's what I like about this fight. The chaos is refreshing and something new for once. Now, in my opinion, almost all the bosses in Super Mario 3D World are great, and these are just 2 of my favorites. There are many more absolute beauties in this game, but there's still one other thing in this title that's even better than that. Number 1. Now, I'm not a big fan of 100%ing games. I usually just don't care about it, unless I really like the game. But for the most part, I just don't care for it. However, Nintendo loves to create all kinds of collectibles, and at first they were quite good, but not amazing. A good example is Super Mario World, where they are quite well hidden and in interesting places, but that's about it. However, in Super Mario 3D World, they really perfected it and took it all a step further in a very good way. There are a number of things you can collect, mostly green stars and stamps, which give you extra points, and some little doodads, but nothing too special. However, what makes them so fun is that in this game they are incredibly well hidden, or require you to solve a little puzzle of sorts. And that's actually what makes them so fun. In this game, obtaining them requires you to do a number of things. For example, like I mentioned before, you have to reach a certain point in Double Cherry Pass while having a clone with you. That way you can activate 2 P-switches for a green star. So that is more of a challenge than anything else. And there are way more like these. For example, one where you need to chase a rabbit for a green star, or even some timed events. And then when it comes to puzzles, a good example is the Goomba Tower that you need to bring down in order to get a star on top. which is both a bit of a challenge and a bit of a puzzle. But still, all of this shows off that Nintendo has come a long way. And then when Super Mario Odyssey came out, Nintendo took it even further, probably as far as it can go. And all of this also works incredibly well with the multiplayer aspect and point system. So that's what I like the most about Super Mario 3D World, and if you've never played it, then I would certainly recommend it, especially because you get Bowser's Fury with it now. So, go look into that. Thanks for watching everybody, I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to click the subscribe button and the bell, leave a like, tell me in the comments what you think about the game, and I love you all. Mwah.